Now, in Breath of the Wild, Nintendo added a bunch of new weapons of all kinds, but there's one that beats them all: the Ancient Arrow, an extremely old weapon that devours anyone it hits and teleports them away. But what happens when you're hit? Where do you go to? Well, let's find out. Now, the Ancient Arrows are a special type that are designed specifically for defeating Guardians. It's created using ancient technology, and to be struck with one is to be consigned to oblivion in an instant. Link can also make them in exchange for ancient materials, arrows and rupees by using the Ancient Oven. They deal moderate damage to bosses, but heavy damage to Guardians. And if hit directly in the eye, they are instantly defeated. If used on enemies, they and their weapons vanish. Nothing will be left behind. So they either damage you or you don't exist anymore. But how does this happen? And where do you end up? Well, as far as we can see, it's made out of the same material as all the other ancient weapons. It seems to be some sort of plasma-like material that deals a ton of damage when you touch it. So that explains why it always hurts to be hit by them, no matter how powerful they are. But why do some get teleported and others remain? Well, that could be because of their power. Maybe it's too much for the arrow and therefore only damages the target. But how is it even able to do something like this? Well, I actually have an answer for this. However, we can't be sure about it. Since it mentions oblivion, I think it uses magic of sorts in order to teleport you to another realm. This is nothing new. We've even seen this at the end of a lot of Zelda games like Ocarina of Time. Even at the very end of Breath of the Wild, you will see Zelda using her divine magic to seal Ganon away in another realm. So this is nothing new to the series, and we have seen this many times before. However, where does the Ancient Arrow lead to? Where do the enemies end up? It says oblivion, but what is that exactly? Well, there are actually multiple types of hell and weird dimensions in the series that Link sometimes even visits. So it has to be one of those, and we actually have 4 options in total. Let's start with our first one, the Dark World. This is a dimension parallel to the Kingdom of Hyrule, which is referred to as being a part of the Light World in contrast, and a corrupted incarnation of the Sacred Realm. It debuted in A Link to the Past, making it the first of many realms alternate to Hyrule to appear in the series. No one wants to end up here. It's filled to the brim with darkness and evil monsters that want to hurt you. However, we have seen in the series that other deities or powerful Hylians have locked away Ganon here. So could the power of the Ancient Arrow also lead to this place? Well, most likely not. It's the place where they keep the triforce after all, and only turned dark when Ganon ended up there. And the technology of the Guardians is never seen there, even though a ton should have ended up there. Besides that, it used to be more cheerful and holy earlier on in the series, and since we don't know where Breath of the Wild fits, it's unlikely. The next possible dimension is also a dark realm, this time connected to a mirror seen in Four Swords Adventures. Long ago, the Dark Mirror was used to seal away a dark tribe that invaded Hyrule, and it was later on hidden in the Temple of Darkness to sever its connection to the world. Now, this is yet again a portal that leads to a form of hell, or at least purgatory. However, this one is even more unlikely than the previous. It was hidden for centuries and wasn't really used by anyone else, so the chance of people using this realm for their magic is slim. Aside from that, we know nothing about the world behind it, so we can't really look there for any clues. So because of those 2 key reasons, I would say that the Dark Mirror's world is out for the count. Now let's move on to the best option we have, the infamous Twilight realm seen in Zelda Twilight Princess. Prior to the events of that game, the Golden Goddesses banished the Twilight out of Hyrule and into the Twilight Realm through the mirror for trying to establish dominion over the Sacred Realm in an event known as the Interloper War. The Hyruleans later used the mirror as a means to punish the worst criminals in the kingdom, since the criminals who were sentenced to death were sent away to the Twilight Realm. So harnessing the power of such an artifact and implementing it into an arrow to banish your enemies in an instant is genius. And since they already used it for getting rid of criminals, why not try to develop a weapon like that? Even if later or earlier generations found it, then they could still use it and learn from it. It was so extremely powerful and useful. However, it was destroyed at some point, creating a bit of a problem. But still, there must be papers or sorts of information on this stuff still around in the kingdom for later generations to find or learn about and reverse engineer it. Even when we look at the realm itself, we can already see all kinds of weird and powerful types of magic or technology. And when comparing it to the stuff seen in the shrines and other ancient tech, then you can see similar patterns and designs. So it could be that the Guardians ended up here and that the criminals and ancient tribe used it. This is the only world where we can see anything like this after all. However, we still have one option left, which could totally work, but would give us no clear answer really. It's related to a boss known as Phantom Ganon seen in the Force Temple from Ocarina of Time. Once you defeat him, Ganondorf's voice echoes through the chamber. He states that this was a mere phantom and that he himself will not falter so easily. But interestingly enough, he then banishes Phantom Ganon to the gap between dimensions, calling it a worthless creation. So apparently that's also an option. And this might be what the Ancient Arrow does. Drop you in the gap between dimensions, never to be seen again. This would certainly solve the problem of where they went and why we never see them again. We have never been there and it might be a good idea to never do that as well. However, it doesn't really give us a good answer. Nothing satisfying at least. And there's no solid proof for it. I only mention it because it's an option. So all of these appear to be our options. And to be honest, I would say that either the Twilight Realm or Gap Between Dimensions are the best options. Just because they solve most of the problems and seem to be the most readily available. So I'm quite curious if they will ever give an answer in the end. Only time will tell. Thanks for watching everybody, I hope you enjoyed. If you want to watch more videos, then click those annotations. And have you clicked the little bell button next to the subscribe button yet? What, you haven't clicked the subscribe button? Be sure to do so, you lovely, because then you help me out and I help you out, because more entertainment and content, it's great.